By inexplicably popular demand from our boss, K-Smell Records is back with a new compilation, Hits on the 60s. 37 unoriginal tunes from unoriginal artists. Tune out, turn off, and drop in to such smashed hits as Runny by Bobby Marlboro.
And honey, I miss you. And I'm being good.
Freak into the run-out grooves of Leanin' on a Glass Pane by Saltpeter, Paul, and Gary.
I'm leaving on a jet plane. Don't know when I'll be back again.
Yes, hits that are so far out of sight, they're out of mind. Hits like Judy in Witness Protection with Aliases by Joe Bob and his Playroom Band.
Judy in disguise, that's what you are. Lemonade pie, yeah, you got your brand new car.
And if you order now, we'll still include Dented Drum by the Stoned Ponies, Saccharin Saccharin by the Starchies, and Waterbill Blues by the First Dimension. Hits that are so heavy, they're leaden.
Bonnie and Clyde were pretty looking people. I can tell you people, they were the devil's children.
Where else are you gonna find all these renditions of these hits? Suck it to your wallet by ordering today. To order Hits on the 60s, please call 1-800-WHAT-A-DEAL. Please have your credit card and or Swiss bank account numbers handy. Or send cash and or money order and or the deed to your home to Hits on the 60s, care of KLAK, P.O. Box 1645, Worms, Nebraska 90125.
You've gone away, oh stormy, oh stormy.
And welcome to the Oddity Archive, the show made just for
You and me endlessly.
especially Leslie. How did we get into her in the first place? That is the lyric, right? Anyway, today marks our first full-fledged trip, and I do mean trip, a full-on stumble into the 60s. And so we've got 5 LPs and a stack of 45s to get to today, so let's get started. Now, today's first album comes to us by way of probably our most regular record ripoffs offender, Pickwick Records. And having said that, this may very well be the debut of their little so-called in-house band, Kings Road, and it's also what's on the box today. So the name doesn't appear on the sleeve here, but this is officially called Kings Road Plays Today's Pops, and it dates to, I believe, early 1969. And as you can probably tell, they're really playing up the whole swinging London Carnaby Street thing here, which would be cute, except I think it had already peaked by this point. And only 3 of the songs on the album originate from UK artists, and one of those is a Neil Diamond cover. Now, and I should also note that I'm pretty sure all the performers here are American. But anyway, as for the music itself, it ranges from unusually good for Kings Road to even worse than usual. And that's saying something.
Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. And don't you know that it's just you? Hey Jude, you do. The movement you need is on your shoulder.
dreams are still the same. Those were the days, my friend, we thought they'd never end. We'd sing and dance forever and a day. We'd live the life we choose. We'd fight and never lose, for we were young and sure to have our way.
Anybody seen my old friend Abraham? Can you tell me where he's gone? He freed a lot of people, but it seems the good they die young. You know, I just turned around, he's gone.
For once in my life I have someone who needs me, someone I needed so long. For once I can touch what my heart used to long for. Before I knew someone like you would make my dreams come true. Take it, baby, tell me now.
All right, and I love her. God knows I love her. Woman, she gets to know you. She gets to hold you.
Throws and throws of angels' hair, and ice cream castles in the air, and feathered canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's clouds' illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all.
The remainder of today's records are all interconnected, and as such, this is going to be kind of an intermittent history lesson episode. So, to kick off the story here, back in around 1962, a couple of Nashville record producers named William Beasley and Alan Bubis, I like that name, got together to launch Hit Records. And it's a little bit of wishful thinking there, isn't it? And today's episode title should become apparent now. But anyway, their initial strategy was to do sound-alike records and put them out on 45s, like this one, and do so at about half the price of the then going rate of a major label 45. And this seemed to work pretty well for them for 5 or 6 years. But I think their end game was to eventually become a legit label, a full-priced label. And they did do some original material. Actually, they did quite a bit of it. And I do have some of it, and you will hear some of it a little later in today's episode. But I'm going to tell you right now, there's a reason they never broke out of budget label status. The original stuff just stinks. Now, as for their bread and butter 45s, I've got 4 of them, and with one glaring exception, which I'm actually going to save for later, these things really aren't bad. I think we've all heard far worse than these.
Doolang, doolang, doolang. Doolang, doolang. He's so fine. Doolang, doolang, doolang. Wish he were mine. Doolang, doolang, doolang. That handsome boy over there. Doolang, doolang. One with the wavy hair. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna make it mine.
If you talk, give me little sweet talk. If you
you some kind of sign, girl. Oh, my baby, to show me that you're mine, girl. Oh, yeah.
Look at the way he looks at her. Look at the way he smiles. I remember when he was mine. I remember when things were fine. Oh, isn't that the look of love?
If you wanna be happy for the rest of your life, if you make a pretty woman your wife. So for my personal point of view, get an ugly girl to marry you. If you wanna be happy for the rest of your life, if you make a pretty woman your wife. So for my personal point of view, get an ugly girl to marry you. If you wanna be happy for the rest of your life.
There used to be a theory of sorts amongst exploitation filmmakers, and this was known as the sack of flour theory. So, in other words, if you had an old-fashioned burlap sack of flour, even after it was seemingly empty, you could still pick it up and give it a good shake and get a little extra flour out of it, seemingly with no end. Well, hit records very much subscribed to this theory. Case in point, on a regular basis, they would round up an LP's worth of their existing 45s and they would put out compilation albums. Like this one. This is from their most common series, Current Hits. How creative. I've got volume number 29 here, and I don't know how many of these they put out, but I'd be willing to bet it's a lot more than 29. Now, there's two notable things about this one. One is that 3 of the songs are actually Hit Records originals, one of which is a very, very drowsy ballad, and the other 2 are these instrumentals that are named after international cities, which completely fail to evoke their namesakes. But the more notable thing about this is that this came right at the height of the British invasion, so we get to hear American Southern boys attempting the Beatles, the Zombies, and more amusingly, Herman's Hermits, and most amusingly, Jerry and the Pacemakers.
So ferry cross the Mersey, 'cause this land's the place I love, and here I'll stay. Ooh, I need your love, babe. Yes, you know it's true. Hold me, love me. I ain't got nothing but love, babe. 8 days a week. Love you every day, girl. Always on my mind. Every time I see you looking my way, baby, baby, can't you hear my heartbeat? When you move up closer to me, I get a feeling that's ooey. Can't you hear the pounding of my heartbeat? You're the one I love. You're the one I love. And if she should tell you, come closer. Tell her no, 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 no. Don't hurt me now, for her love belongs to me. I'm not going to hurt my pride, and girl, I won't hold on to you. Not if you're through. The blue eyes and bright skies aren't there anymore. Not anymore for me.
Over the last few years, I've actually gotten a handful of emails and tweets and such from viewers asking me if I have/want a copy of this next record. And of course, I always have to turn them down and say, no, I've already got it, just haven't covered it yet. But the record in question would be 26 Top Hits from 1968, or possibly early 69. And like all good too many songs for a single LP isms out there, a lot of the tunes had to be truncated to jam it onto one LP. And they got this one down to 52 minutes, which isn't too terrible, but once you factor in the crappy vinyl quality, yeah, you're listening to the rumble and click just as much as the music. Now, once again, Hit Records has graced us with some of its original tunes. Actually, 14 out of the 26 cuts here are their lousy originals. Actually, let me amend that. It's 15, technically. So, some famous and famous-ish people passed through the ranks of Hit Records. And one of those would be songwriter Bobby Russell. And Bobby Goldsboro had just had a #1 single with Bobby Russell's Honey, which is prominently featured here. And I guess it was just God's little joke. So, more on Bobby Russell here. Even though he wrote a handful of hits for other artists and even had a couple minor ones himself, he had quite a hand in Hit Records and actually sang on a fair amount of their knockoffs. Unfortunately, Bobby Russell was a very good mimic, so it's very hard to pick him out. And he usually wasn't credited. Actually, nobody is usually credited on these things, so we can only guess as to whether or not Bobby Russell himself actually performs on this. And tellingly, this being Hit Records, Honey is one of only 3 songs here to be complete.
She was always young at heart, kinda dumb and kinda smart, and I loved her so. And honey, I miss you, and I'm being good. She's the same little girl who used to hang around my door. But she sure looks different than the way she did before. I call her Valerie. I love her.
Young girl, get out of my mind. My love for you is way out of line. Better run, girl. You're much too young, girl. With all the talk of a woman, 'cause I had nothing to live for, and look like nothing come my way. So just wanna sit on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh. Judy in disguise, that's what you are. Lemonade pie, yeah. You got your brand new car. Cantaloupe eyes come to me tonight. Judy in disguise with glasses.
she walked out, I thought I couldn't live. I'm gonna be wise like Solomon. They call me a wise old man. I keep a watchful eye, and I'll never make a love mistake again.
At about the same time, if not at the same time as they launched Hit Records, William Beasley and Alan Bubis launched Spar Records, as in to spar with an enemy. So, as best as I can tell, the initial idea behind Spar was to be a much more original material-oriented label. But of course, you've heard some of Hit Records' original stuff now, and it's about on the same level, so that obviously didn't pan out. And by the end of the 60s, they just gave up on any pretense of being a legit label. And really, to finish out the story here, Hit Records kind of petered out around 68 or 69, and Spar Records seems to end right around the end of 1970, maybe early 71. But Spar was replaced with, I kid you not, another 4 or 5 labels in succession at the rate of about one per year. And the trail goes cold around 1974, 75. But anyway, sticking with Spar Records here, there is one barely famous thing about this label, and that is a group, which of course doesn't really exist, called the Now Generation. And that's because on 2 of the at least 7 albums they released, a young Jimmy Buffett appears on the album cover and possibly on the records themselves. So today's last 2 albums would be those records. We got Come Together and Hits Are Our Business. Now, these are actually both from 1970, but I still consider them 60s records because all the real versions of these things were released and hit their chart peak in no later than 69. So, yeah, it still counts in my book. Now, unlike a lot of Hit Records stuff, they actually don't try and force any of their original stuff on you here. This is all sound-alikes. But having said that, they still have that little habit of recycling. So the 2 B-sides of these albums, the full B-sides, are comprised of existing Hit Records 45s. And some of them date probably about as far back as 1963. The sound just kind of drifts farther and farther off as the records go on. But anyway, getting back to Jimmy Buffett here, I'll be damned if I can tell you what his contributions were to these records. He definitely doesn't sing on any of this stuff, and he's not really known for his instrumental chops, so I really couldn't tell you if he plays or not on any of this, and really, he may not play on any of this at all. Of course, nobody is credited. But there is one thing I can tell you. These 2 albums are home to some of the worst sound-alikes I've ever encountered.
To put you right.
Take the last train to Clarksville and I'll meet you at the station. You can be here by 4:30 cause I've made your reservation. Don't be slow.
Mercy. Pretty woman, won't you pardon me, pretty woman?
That you look lovely as can be. Are you lonely just like me?
Gentle barroom way in Memphis. It's a honky-tonk women. Give me the honky-tonk blues.
We had a love you don't find every day. It's gone, it's gone, it's gone, it's gone and passed away. Please, I need your love, I need your love. Bring it on back, bring it on back. Bring back that loving feeling.
Had it already. Let's go take no chance. Let's go be yourself while we're learning to dance. Bullet, 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 bullet. Go on and kiss him goodbye. Groovy on a Sunday afternoon. I can't imagine anything that's better. The world is ours whenever we're together. There ain't a place I like to be. Yeah, yeah, groovy.
Early in the evening, just about supper time. Over by the courthouse, they're starting to unwind. Down on the corner, out in the street, when the poor boys are playing, ringing nickels at your feet.
Okay, I teased earlier that I was going to hold back one of the songs from one of the 45s for the end of the episode. So, let's get around to it. Let's close things out today by finally answering that age-old burning question. What would it sound like if that skanky, slutty cheerleader we all knew in high school attempted a Connie Francis cover?